Lovely morning. Well, things are calming down, I suppose. I pretty much had 2 quiet, settled years in St Albans and Harpenden, with just getting on with one's life as one does. With nothing much happening, quite frankly. So it was entirely my decision to move to Alnwick. I just felt that was the right thing to do for me. I couldn't ever see anything developing in Hertfordshire. I want my own place, quite frankly, where the people who come are those who are welcome, not those bearing ill will in their hearts. So in that regard, number 26 in Michael Square, my Christian broadcasting place, because that's where I am, therefore that's what it is, in my mind's eye, it's a temporary, well, it's a year's tenancy to see what happens. Indeed. But it's all been occasioned just by a few nasty little neighbours, quite frankly. I've had very little interaction with the directly next door one. He's a sort of local chap. We've just chatted over the fence occasionally. Chatted over the fence on the other side. There's some Polish people there. In fact, they probably all know each other. But there'd be no unpleasantness with them. It's the one thing I can still do, speak as a Christian. It's my principal output, out anything. Yes, I meet people all the time, fine. And that's what I want. I want something to grow where I am. Well, I've got to be somewhere for that to happen. And I don't envisage that here. I sort of looked at this little chapel and thought, isn't that sweet? They're dotted all over the show. It reminds me a little bit of Stoke-on-Trent, the Potteries towns. They've got these little sort of Methodist chapels all over the show. More often than not, they turned into boxing clubs or flats or something. So clearly people used to have faith and they wanted a place to go and worship God. Whereas we now seem to live in this age where God is almost a forgotten matter. Not to me, he isn't. I am a Christian. God is absolutely at the center of my life, wherever I may be and whatever transpires. I quite often refer to Psalm 139. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So, in that sense, all the recent traumatic events in my life were sort of lined up for me. I mean, I see it so clearly with my former wife. You know, we had to meet through our horses. Lo and behold, one thing led to another. And along came my son, Robert Francis. And then the whole of the rest of my life, actually. I'm getting older, as we do, and my nature is to be positive, cheerful. St. Francis was so clear about this. If you go out into the world, you must have a cheerful face on. So if I can't cope with that, yes, all right, I'll curl up at home and just curl up, providing I've got a home to curl up in. That's quite curiously actually living out. In fact, I almost miss it in a curious sort of sense. Much as I've appreciated making my own homes in two places now in the last 2 years. In fact, it raises all sorts of other stuff. Whereas if I'm out, that's it. I'm on a pilgrimage. I carry everything I need on my back, and that's it. Each day you have to manage that which needs managing. Whereas when one has a home, I mean, you don't have to think, where am I going to get my water from? Where am I going to go to the loo? Where am my food coming from? You know, you have stocks and supplies. You have things around you. You start acquiring things. And you have neighbors. Oops. So there we are. I line up, I communicate with my solicitor, with the police. I pick up the mail on my illegal or breaking my bail conditions visit to my own place. So I've got the mail to deal with, the water and the council tax and electricity and gas. So I'll deal with that. It's not that big a deal. It's the utter insult, the rape. They have my main device, so that telephone number is obviously associated with my work and my YouTube sites. And I mean, quite frankly, I don't know. I mean, in my contacts, there are only a handful of people, really. So that's fairly easy to deal with. But I mean, it's just the fact that some complete stranger has catalyzed somehow the local police's resentment of my being there. I mean, that's got to be the conclusion I draw. Why go for me the way they've gone for me, and probably still are, trawling through my films to find anything they can find to charge me with or further harass me with. So far from doing their job, they've done exactly the reverse, which is appalling. They've positively made my life pretty damn awful. The local police, the big jail, they were just neutral. You're just another body, brought in, this, that, and the other thing, and you've got to be fed and watered, and your medical needs catered for if necessary, etc. Bang, that's it. Whereas the locals clearly resent my presence, or why behave the way they've done. So then it's, why do they resent my presence? Could it be that they're involved somehow with some local nefarious activity? I don't know. I have no evidence of that, other than the quite extraordinary sort of juxtaposition of what they should have done and what actually happened. If someone puts in a 999 call in fear of their safety and has to lock themselves in their own home until the police arrive, waiting anxiously for the police to arrive to make peace and calm the threatening, harassing neighbours down, get them off my back, twice in one day, and they didn't react to that. They didn't think that something should be done about it. And then by the Thursday of that same week, less than a fortnight in, I know I've said all this before, but I'm arrested and released on the pure evidence of someone who utterly lied, invented a complete story that I thwacked a child. Well, that should have rung bells. I'd seen this first solicitor by then. My contention is that he should have had the nous, quite frankly, and experience. He's a man of 72, I think. Probably years and years of experience of this sort of stuff. And he should have been there fighting for me. Pushing a few buttons, pulling a few bells to ring or something. I don't know. It is a massive, serious allegation that a man with a big stick thwacks a small child. It's under further... What are they investigating further? I am curious to know, actually. I'm going to be on to my solicitor about this. Were x-rays taken of the child's leg of any injury? Because there'd definitely be physical evidence. There was a thwack with a big stick on a little child's leg. The bones are still soft. They'd be bent. Or there'd be evidence. You'd see it in an x-ray. And I'm sure there isn't. I'm sure the woman, his mother, who must have done it, made the little pinch mark. It was a little red pinch mark. Little kids, when they fall over, they get bruises in their legs. You see it. There was none of that. So how... And then weeks later, all the other stuff happens. I mean, I'm still clearly trying to get my head around it. Certainly calm down. But there is no question or shadow of a doubt in my mind, in my spirit, that in this situation, I am the victim. I am the aggrieved party. I've done nothing really in any way wrong. I've used one rather unpleasant phrase to describe one particular neighbour, provoked after weeks of trouble. Harassment, massive harassment. So I don't understand that, and hence why I come up with a possible explanation, which I'm intending to pursue. I will certainly say it and see what sort of reaction I get out of the police, who are not actually, it's got a number and there's a person behind. They only give you their first name. But there's a collar number, or whatever it is called. She's a civilian. She's not a policewoman. Well, I don't know what more I can do. I intend to keep that place afloat. If I lose that, well, I don't know. It's not the end of the world, but if I feel so strongly that I prayed and prayed about this for months beforehand. I've been going through that area, I suppose, kind of thinking about it since the 70s, quite frankly. The Holy Island, Lindisfarne, the Farne Island, St. Aidan, St. Cuthbert, the Venerable Bede, all these people I admire and respect. King Oswald, I didn't know anything about him actually until I looked it all up. I love St. Francis of Assisi, much, much deeper thing than these saints. I just know little bits about them. But they were documented human beings who were called by God, and I genuinely feel God has called me to that area, therefore I must stick at it, basically. I would be failing in my duty to God if I didn't stick at it. Whatever it takes. I don't know if the police have the power to vary the bail conditions. I assume it would be a question of resubmitting the matter to the courts, and they'd have to make a decision with further evidence. My medical conditions, the absolute lies of this woman. But, they've got loads on their plates as it is, with COVID and everything. So I can't quite see how that's going to happen. But I'm certainly going to push for it. And that I'm just allowed back into my own property or my own rented property, and just to get on with my life. I mean, post getting the doctor sorted, my cardiologist, my knee, local contacts, all of that stuff. I'm never going to settle down here in Sunderland. A week here, a week there. And as it happens, this is a very pleasant environment in a sense. And at all things considered, a pretty reasonable cost, but still wiping me out. I can't afford another £1,000 a month. Where am I going to get that from? So then that's capital out of the window. Unless I go down and live in the porch of the Baptist church. Well, I don't have to make a decision on that till next Tuesday. My leg is well and truly. So I'm not an able person any longer. I really am not. Anyway, talking to myself as usual. I still got my fly. There was a little moth came in last night, my little visitors. They're beautiful. If you look closely, they're sort of just kind of a grey mush, but if you actually look closely at a moth, They're all varied colours and stuff. Nature's beautiful. I get to see the seagulls here. I'll find a positive way of looking at my life. I mean, I'm in very good company. Paul was incarcerated somehow in Rome, I think, for 1.5 years. St. Paul. Before, I think, I'm not quite sure, but I am sure he was martyred. Not quite sure how they did it. Same for Peter. St. Peter, the rock, Cephas. Those early Christians had pretty challenging experiences. I reread the Beatitude passage, Matthew chapter 5, blessed are those who are persecuted in my name. Well, mine has an absolutely clear anti-religious element to it. 666 on the front doorstep. Messages on my film saying Jesus hates you and stuff like this. I've sinned in God's eyes. Well, we've all sinned, thank you very much, but not in the context of this situation. Can't do much till 9 o'clock. It's early in the way of the world. Right, that's quite enough of a ramble. I'm definitely more together about myself and the situation now anyway. Cheerio. Nice day. Candles lit. David looking on. Mother Mary looking on. Nice day.